Hey everyone, this is Luke Johnson for Know Your Poker. Today we're going to be diving into my hand histories, covering some of my more unconventional bluffs. Hope you enjoy. Hand number one, we're dealt into the big blind with 10 out of clubs. We face a UGG open and we defend with the call. You can 3-bet this hand sometimes despite being versus early position. As you can see in the wizard here, UGG open, 10-8 suited, we 3-betting around 28%, so around 1 in 4, 1 in 3 times. This time though we do call, see a flop of queen 10-5 rainbow, great board for in position, and he bets half pot. Slightly interesting, I would have thought this is a 1/3 range or like 40% range, but doesn't matter too much. And already this is an interesting situation. So if you're in this situation in late position, let's say in position blind or out position big blind versus button, you just smooth call, lots of other hands to raise. However, versus early position, you don't have Jack 9 offsuit, King 9 offsuit, Jack 8 offsuit to be raising. A hand like Jack 7 suited doesn't make it into a raising range because it's a clear fold. So immediately now, this hand drops down in our range. Second pair is no longer that strong, big blind versus under the gun, and we can begin to bluff it. So tip number one for finding these more unconventional bluffs is don't be afraid to start using showdown value and turning it into a bluff. So we go ahead and raise, and villain calls. Turn is effectively a blank. In truth, we would have a little bit of 5 deuce of diamonds and hearts here that check raise the flop, but for the most part, it's a blank. Remember, on the flop, I'm playing a mega polarized game plan when I check raise. I'm basically telling villain I've got ace queen or better. So c-betting the turn for less than pot doesn't really make much sense because I'm so polarized. In fact, you could even go bigger here, which is what I do. After I've got great blockers to what I want to block here, which is queen 10 and pocket 10s, and then really good unblockers. For example, villain would bet call 9-8 with backdoors and bet fold 9-8 without backdoors. So I actually unblock the 9-8, that bet call swap, and then folds the turn with my suits. So I've got good blockers and unblockers. I go ahead and c-bet, and villain calls. River is effectively a blank here. I would not have 3-4 suited. Remember the tight configurations, that would have to check fold the flop here. And I do go ahead and check. Reason for that is, whilst I do block what I want to block in the name of the queen 10 and 10s, I also would block them from shoving too. However, I also unblock a bunch of bluffs, the Jack 9, the King Jack, the Ace Jack, maybe even the Ace King that might turn itself into a bluff. So I've got really good blockers to the value range and really good unblockers to the bluffing range. And facing a shove here, we only need to be right 31% of the time. So I elect to take my unconventional bluff into a check call on the river. This time, it does not work out for me. Villain does have the one combo of pocket 10s, but still in hindsight, I really like my line here. Hand number two, personal favorite of mine. We face a UGG open for 2.1 blinds, fold round to me. Honestly, this one is pretty unsure. Like, if I face 2.25, I'm folding. I can even check wizard for this. If I go to 2x, believe my hand's a defend, yes, I would not be 3-betting this hand. And if I face 2.25, my hand is now a fold. So your guess is as good as mine. Should I defend? Should I fold? It's very close. Maybe that's why he's opening 2.1, just to confuse people for this exact situation. Anyway, I do call. I think it's fine to fold. It's fine to call. Anyway, we're not here for that. We check. Villain bets 1/3, and we raise. Very good combo, obviously, with the backdoor suits as well. Villain calls. And we get a pretty annoying turn. So I imagine this is where most players go into check call mode because after all, you still got top pair. However, what about betting? If we take a look at our cards, our blockers are really powerful. The ace of spades perfectly blocks the ace-6 of spades. It blocks pocket aces. And the 4 of diamonds blocks pocket 4s and the 4-5 of diamonds. So blocker-wise, we are in really good shape. We also unblock a bunch of natural folds. So for example, if we do this, what would you do with the flush drawers in position if you had Jack 9, Jack 10, Queen Jack of diamonds not drawing to the nuts on a paired board and the tight configuration facing a big sizing? It's not a good situation for you. You're drawing to less outs because of the board pair and potentially no outs. You could be drawing dead already. These hands are pretty natural folds, or at least mixes, so we unblock a bunch of natural folds in villain's range here. And lastly, let's think back to the first hand here. Remember in these tight configurations how you can start bluffing board pairs. So if you raise this in position blind, the 6 of hearts would surely be a bad turn for you because you wouldn't raise a 6 much and out of position would bet call a 6. However, out of position, big blind versus UGG, you are going to have way more trips than the in position player. You're going to have 6-3, 6-4 for a boat, 6-5 offsuit, 6-7 offsuit because you're playing it with versus a small open sizing. So all of a sudden, this 6 becomes not a terrible turn. It's not a great turn, but it's also not a terrible turn for you. So that's going to allow you to find these extra unconventional bluffs like ace-4 offsuit that most people miss, but you are allowed to find it. So after some deliberation, villain does eventually tank fold. It's always good when you get a tank fold here because it means that your bluff got a lot of credit. It could mean the complete opposite and they were thinking of making a very thin play. However, in this configuration, I doubt it. I think a tank fold is quite honest in that they actually made a big fold. They may have had the worst hand anyway, but there's also a good chance they made a better hand fold. Checking the solution, we are raising flop every time with our combo with the good suits. And you can see how many 6x we have. 7-6 suited and 6-5 suited. These are symmetrical with under the gun. But then we have 7-6 offsuit, 6-5 offsuit, 6-4 offsuit, 6-4 suited, 6-3 suited. You get the idea. All of these low hands, because of the small open sizing, we have way more than the villain. And that's going to allow us on the turn, the 6 of hearts, to have lots and lots of overbets. This is 20 blinds going into 15, so 133%, with 2/3 of our range here. And as you can see, my combo, top middle, does go with a bet around 60% of the time. So an unconventional bluff, which is solver approved. Hand number 3, this is a real cool hand, definitely a street poker hand here. So we're playing on coin poker, we face an open from a regular, I go with my small 3-bets, and we get a cold call from the regular and the initial open up calls as well. So we're playing multi-way here in a 3-way pot with 2 other regs. The antes and my small 3-bet really help for some interesting street poker hands. It's always fun to play these spots. So we go multi-way to Jack 10-3. Usually this is a great board for me. However, I have to expect the cold calling range here to have a lot of this board, basically. I've not gone 9 big blinds or 10 big blinds pre, I've only got 5.5. So he can definitely cold call hands like Jack 10 suited, Queen Jack suited, pocket 10s, pocket jacks. So yeah, like I said, usually I'm very happy on this board, but now I expect I am second place. I'm definitely doing better than the initial opener, but the button cold caller has the positional advantage, and I would say the range advantage here overall. So I don't range check the situation. However, I'm checking a lot, and I did check this hand this time. Villain bets small, about a quarter pot, which is a little bit interesting. I would have expected to see a bit of a bigger sizing. Whilst they are first place, I've still got a strong range here, so I would have expected them to bet a bit bigger to showcase their polarity. The initial opener folds, and I elect to call here. I was mixing some raise in game as well, which I think is fairly standard. Turn is a king of clubs, and this is where it gets interesting. So I believe, not that I've ran the solution for this, but I believe that I am definitely the first place player now. On the flop, villain can just bet a hand like pocket sixes as a bluff sometimes. He can bluff a hand like ace 4 of diamonds. He can bluff a hand like 6-5 of diamonds. So he can have a lot of nothing. I, on the other hand, cannot have nothing on this situation because I've checked called, I've not bet. So when my range really wrapped around the king in an okay way with like king 10 and king queen, but also in a really big way like pocket kings and ace queen and even queen 9, because I'm going to have queen 9. He's not going to cold call queen 9 here. I can have queen 9 because of Andy's and my small 3-bet. I'm definitely first place now. So I go ahead and donk for half pot. Villain doesn't take much time and calls, which I put some thought into. I believed if they did have ace queen, they would at least think about raising a bit more. Although calling this spot with ace queen wouldn't be bad, because I think if I lead and they raise, it's just a complete megaphone play that they've got the nuts. So villain is definitely a thinking player, and I think they might just proceed with not many raises because they just know that raise looks way too strong. So we go to the river, and a 7 of diamonds comes. And at this point, I felt like, well, if I shove, what does it look like I have? It just looks like I've got some sort of value here. Because what can I bluff? Do I turn queens into a bluff? Do I turn queen jack and queen 10 into a bluff? Maybe, but that's like best case scenario is villain thinks I'm bluffing those hands. And most players don't bluff those hands. So this is tip number 2. When it's impossible to find bluffs, feel free to get super unconventional and out of line. I say out of line, it might not even be out of line. Again, I've not looked at a solution for this one, but I believe that when it's impossible to find bluffs in your range, going with bluffs typically does quite well, because when you're bluffing, you're effectively telling a story. In this case, my story is that I'm value betting, and I believe the story is very, very, very believable, because when he thinks, okay, I don't believe your story, then what does he actually give me to not believe it? He has to give me those queen 10s, queen jacks, pocket queens. If he doesn't give me those hands, and maybe the occasional 8-7, then there's like no remaining bluffs. So I go ahead and go all in. Villain does take some time and eventually folds, quite similar to the ace 4 in the last hand. Always good to get the tank fold because it does show your bluff is getting a lot of credit, and we scoop a nice pot. Hand number 4, we are saving the biggest till the last. We are playing 20k now on GG, face a UGG open, and we 3-bet. Definitely not a pure 3-bet, but okay to mix in from time to time. You could even flat jacks and queens in this situation as well in these positions. Sometimes 3-betting 10-8 suited in the first hand, other times flatting queens. Poker is a crazy game. This time we 3-bet, Villain calls, flop is 9-8-6 monotone, and we have the 10 with the straight flush draw. Super interesting situation here. I would say I'm not too happy, but not too unhappy about the situation. It's just kind of okay. I've got a lot of things going for me and some things that are not going for me as well here. I go ahead and bet 10%. This is not a range bet, but I think this hand is fine to bet. It's also fine to check. Villain raises very small, gives me effectively 5-1 here, so he's raised 25% of the pots, which is definitely fine. Really hard to know what's going on exploitatively in this case. It's very easy to overbluff the situation, is what I will say, but also it's very easy to have value too. So in any case, I think our hand just makes for a very fine call here. So that's what I do. 9 comes on the turn. I think leading is pretty reasonable here. This time I don't find it. In hindsight, I would have liked to have found this lead. I think it makes some sense. I check. Villain bets small, he bets 30% pots, and I go ahead and basically click it back to him. So tip number 3 for the unconventional bluffs is feel free to get your spice on. Remember we spoke about in the last hand how when you're bluffing you're telling a story. Well, this is an incredibly strong story. We have 3-bet big blind versus UTG. We have bet called the very connected flop, and then we have check min raised out of position on the straight flush paired board at 20k now. We're playing for a lot of money here. We're not bluff raising at 500 now, we're bluff raising at 20k now. Our story is incredibly strong, and when you put that together, you are going to find some really, really big fold from in position shoes. Also, imagine you are in position. What do you think you're getting bluffed by? Are you getting bluffed by king queen with a heart? No, because that wouldn't 3-bet big blind versus under the gun. Ace queen also wouldn't 3-bet big blind versus under the gun. So the only natural bluff you can see here is ace king with a heart. That wouldn't always bet the flop and wouldn't always min raise the turn. In fact, a lot of players with ace king with a heart here would just call and hope to hit. So if you put all that together, then what do you expect to see? You can definitely see some value in their range, right? Occasional boat. Boats are pretty unlikely here, and then obviously flushes. But bluffs are so incredibly hard to find. So after some deliberation, Villain does eventually tank fold, which I remember was extremely painstaking. I had so much anxiety in this situation that I could actually feel my heart beat. I could even hear it. Looks like the spice in this hand, the story from pre-flop, the flop and turn, did ring true to him, and he likely folded a much better hand than mine. Hey everyone, that's going to wrap up the video for today, reviewing my more unconventional bluffs. Hope you have enjoyed. If you did, please do leave the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It goes a long way. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. It's been myself, Lou Johnson, for Know Your Poker. Take care. Bye-bye for now.